Well, I'm going to get us started, and like any other live, people will join when they feel like it. Um, so thank you for coming today. I have Beckett Johnson with me to talk about adding other art forms to your writing toolkit. And Beckett has a wonderful Substack called the Quantum Nomad. You want to put the link in there?
Yep.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I'll
I
do
think they
that.
could just click on your name, but just go ahead and put the link in there. And while you're doing that, Beckett, I'm going to share with them, if it's okay with you, that quote from Instagram
Yeah,
of you that I love. Okay.
absolutely.
So, um, and if you don't know me, Sheri Handel, Bite Size Storytelling Boost. I do write. I do write. I write. Um, I write memoir mostly, and other essays. I also share what I know about writing with others. Um, I have a system called Notes to Post that works with a system such as Substack to help you chunk out your writing, your weekly writing tasks into 3 notes that you then compile into your long form story for the week. And it's based on using images, which brings us to this topic today. I'm going to read to you something that Beckett posted on Instagram. Despite the old stories of the starving artist, I know deep within that I'm destined for success. I'm meant to photograph, paint, and write, to be a storyteller, weaving emotions through the air, touching hearts and souls in a way only I can. So let me reintroduce myself as an alchemist of creativity. I invite you to join me on this journey of rediscovery and artistic rebirth. My heart. So, was this when you rebranded as the Quantum Nomad or before that?
That was when I rebranded, because when I originally started on Substack, I came over just to write. I didn't bring an email list. I didn't really tell anybody. And it was originally called Reverie Tales. And it was kind of this idea of I didn't know really where I was going or what I was going to be doing. I just knew I needed to get writing. And so about 5 months, I would say, after being on Substack, I found my groove and I found what it was really going to be about. And that's when Quantum Nomad kind of came out. And I was like, okay, I don't know if anybody's going to get this, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, yeah. And when you started the Quantum Nomad, um, I think you posted something like this: because you're not here for surface level fluff. You want stories that hit in the soul, insights that challenge your thinking, and a side of laughter that reminds you not to take life too seriously.
Yeah.
So, where'd that come from?
It's an essence of who I am. I mean, I can be a deep thinker and I can have fun. And, I've been in the spiritual community, spiritual world, and I felt like one thing that was missing was play, was laughter, was lightness. It was like, we can still have great conversations and deep conversations and still laugh and still have some fun with it and maybe, balance the emotions a little bit more. And it's just naturally who I am. I like to laugh and I like to make people laugh and I like to give people a breath of fresh air even in the middle of a conversation. And it just kind of came out in my writing too. And I'm like, let's embrace that. It doesn't necessarily make sense, right? Because you don't usually see comedy or laughter so much with a serious topic, but you can have both. And I learned that a lot through my own journey, that even though I was going through some of my darkest times, I needed moments to laugh, to just breathe.
Yep.
It didn't mean I wasn't still sad or dealing with what I was dealing with, but it was like it gave me that fresh breath to go, okay, I can continue on this path that I'm on, even though it's dark. And the laughter kind of just gave me that moment.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I relate to it quite a bit. Um,
Yeah.
so, okay. One of the first things that brought me to you, to your Substack, and I think some of the people who are on here, who know your work, would relate. So that was the grocery store stories.
Yeah.
And those were, and they still are because you still are
Hmm.
posting them. Um, like there was the one about, so I should first tell people like you were working in a grocery store and you were basically stocking,
Yeah,
right?
it was during one of the darkest, to give you some background, darkest times of my life. I had just had a traumatic brain injury. I had a 1% chance of survival. I couldn't really do much anymore. And so I went to a grocery store, local grocery store. I had moved back in with my parents. I was 41 years old. And I started just stocking shelves, and I felt very lonely, broken, didn't know who I was, didn't feel very seen, didn't know how I fit in the world, if I even fit in the world. And that grocery store became my connection. It became a way for me to find a place when I felt so out of place. And, the customers didn't know that, but I knew that, and it was okay. And so I, became very attentive to them, and that's what launched the grocery store stories.
Yeah. So there was one, and I think you posted this one recently where there was a widow
Mhm. Yeah.
and you kind of noticed her just standing there staring at the shelf. And
Yeah.
can you just tell us what happened there?
Yeah, there's a widow, she was looking for the one I think I just recently posted, or it's coming out again, is the tea. There's a couple of them, but, her husband had just passed and she was not sleeping. She just kind of was lost in the tea, and it was just that moment of grief and understanding that, I don't you could kinda just sense her feeling of feeling lost. And what was interesting is I could feel that in them because I felt that way. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
didn't know that, but I think it helped me to see it in other people at that time. And she had just lost her husband and was just looking for a way to find a way to sleep, and felt it refreshing that, she said, at one point said, I feel like he's still there with me. And I said, he probably is. And just that moment allowed her to breathe with me and, brought tears to her eyes. Like, I'm sure other people would have said, well, you're crazy. He's gone, get over it. But it was like, why, it's hard for me to talk about these still because I get teary eyed just
Yeah.
actually just going back to that moment of having that moment with her. Um, because I could feel that. I could feel her pain and I could feel her loss, and it hit, and I just helped her, pick out tea because that seemed like such a big deal to her, dealing with so many emotions. And it was those small connections that really helped me survive that time in my life.
Yeah. And, um, I think everybody who reads them can relate. I'm sorry I made you cry.
No, it's okay. It happens. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's a beautiful cry.
And, I think your willingness to open yourself up with those stories and to actually approach people when you see them in distress is, you have a great deal of empathy. And the
Mhm.
empathy comes out in the writing. And I think that's why people can identify to it so well. So there's that. Um, and then let's bring in the visual now a little bit more. I mean, I think, when you use description, even in those little vignettes,
Mhm.
it's very powerful. And I would encourage people, like, if you don't feel like you're good at description, take a look um, at Quantum Nomad and the things um, that you're writing because it's just really very descriptive and it carries a lot of weight. But I want to read something else from
Okay.
you, which is from a story. And you said, lately, this fountain pen has been doing the listening. Ink slows us down just enough to hear what's true. So you've been doing a lot more with ink lately, right?
Yeah,
Drawing.
my fountain pen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of the different media that you work with, and how do you choose one? And, what are the different impacts do you think that it makes?
That's a great question because, initially and getting my, I never saw myself writing about grocery store stories. It was a moment of me having a coffee and remembering the first one I wrote with that older man, and I just intuitive hit was like post that. And I was like, who's going to care? This is just a moment. And people did. And so I think art, especially being an artist, a photographer, I worked in the film industry for 7 years. And getting when I felt so unseen, it helped me to see more. And each modality, I don't care if it's artwork you're creating, I don't care if it's writing. I personally like to feel something in my hands. Like I like to read a book. I like to feel the fountain pen glide across the paper because I think that adds something to the experience for me and connection. And art helps me to realize that when I'm out and I'm noticing these things, and I still notice and I realize that's just who I am. I just notice people, I notice moments. And I usually sit with those moments and think, how do they want to be expressed? Does this want to be a photograph? Maybe this wants to be a piece of writing. Maybe it's both. Maybe it really wants to be a art piece, right? Maybe it's something I do with watercolors and acrylics. But the answer eventually comes to me is like this. This needs to be a writing. This needs to be maybe a podcast. This needs to be a photograph and a piece of literature. It's whatever feels called to me that holds this story in the best way I can and my goal is always to bring the person with me like they're there sitting there having the moment themselves. Like I'm not telling you about it. If you're looking at my photography, you're sitting there in it, right? If you're reading one of my writings, hopefully you feel like you're sitting there in it. And that's what you were talking about before, the description. It's like I don't want to tell you about it. I want you bring you in there where
Yep.
you feel like you're part of the story and in whatever medium I use. And all of those help me express in different ways. And it's always been, something I feel like a photograph might be able to capture that sometimes words can't.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I'm with you on that. I mean, you know what I do, right? So,
Yes.
um, what you said before, that you're out and you're looking about you and you see something and you feel like it wants to be expressed.
Yeah.
And how can you express that? So, I have like a repertoire, I think, of imagery that, um, I call on quite frequently. And it doesn't mean that I don't ex expand on that,
Hmm.
but, for example, the trees forming portals, right?
Yep.
That's something that comes up quite frequently for me if I'm out walking and I see, um, the branches overlapping and it creates a gap, right? You
Yeah.
know, or a frame.
Yeah.
You could look at it as either a gap or a frame, and my story is inside there.
Hmm.
And I'll take the picture, I will walk around, I will get the different perspective, but I will get the picture that is speaking to me, and then the story will come sometimes later,
Hmm.
you know? And oftentimes, I'm not writing about that scene.
Right.
So, for example, that one about the 2 guys walking in the park. One was tall, wearing a hat, the other was shorter, carrying his hat. They both had hats, and that was kind of interesting to me. It's like, "Wow, they both have hats. What are they talking about? Who are they?
Yeah.
What's their relationship?" Yada, yada, yada. So, I let them pass me, and then I turned around and I took their picture from behind.
Hmm.
I didn't want to encroach on their privacy, so I did that. And, weeks later, I looked at it and asking myself those questions again. Who are they? What's their relationship? How often have they walked in that park together?
Yeah.
Um, and then I thought about all the people I have walked in the park with and how far back that extended in my life,
Hmm.
before I had kids. A 40th birthday party that my ex threw for me, the nicest thing he ever did. Um, and my babies were there. They were babies then. My friend Lila. who died of a terrible battle with cancer, but she wanted to go to the park with me. She loved walking in the park, seeing the cherry blossoms in the park. So it brought back all of that. And that was what the story became. What does this park, uh, what is this park for me? What does it mean to me?
Right.
So that's a little bit of that. Um, we are going to go over time. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with
Okay.
me.
Like 15 minutes because we
Yeah.
lost 15 minutes. Okay. And those of you who could stay, please do stay. If you can't, we understand because the technology messed us up.
We did
We
our
did not
best.
mess up.
No, we
Wasn't
did our
you?
best.
Okay. Um, so I'm going to read another thing from you because I
Okay.
love your writing so much.
Thank you.
All right. A cat folded into my chest like a small vibrating moon. Peppermint coffee steaming in a mug that's seen some things.
Mhm.
I carried that feeling into my creative studio, sat down, opened my animation software, and that familiar spark that only shows up when I'm learning something new and learning something new and stretching the edges of my creativity.
Mhm.
There is so much in there that I want to unpack.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
okay, so talk about these phrases um, vibrating moon and a mug that's seen some things.
Yeah, we just got a cat, and typically I'm a dog guy, and this cat kinda came into my world and chose me, and I love all animals, and he's just kinda changed my world, and he's black and white, and, he has this way of laying on my chest, and he has this little chirp when he purrs, and he just has this vibrance and this soothing and this calmness to him that reminds me of, like, when you and I don't know, but here we can see, like, when the moon is super bright in the sky and you're looking up, and it's just this calmness of washing over you, and that's just what it felt like for me, and nature is a big deal to me, so I relate a lot of things to going, "Where do I feel this in other areas?" Do you know what I mean? Where have I felt this comfort? What was it outside? Was it something? Was it a plant? Was it a person? Was it a place? And that's kind of where that sentence came from, is like this little vibrating moon that just lays on my chest and just connects with my heart and just sinks and allows me to calm instantly. And, I don't know if he knows he's doing that. I think he does. Um, but that's kind of where that came from. And then the coffee cup, I think, was the next one.
Yep. Yep. Let me just say that thing again. Peppermint coffee steaming in a mug that's seen some things.
Yeah, I have this mug that was gifted to me, I don't know, 8 years ago, maybe less, in Arizona, and it's, "Own your journey." And it's a mug that's been with me through you look at it and think, "That's such a great quote," but it's seen some rough journeys of, an instant move, people falling in and out of my lives. Just I when I pour my coffee in the morning, I try to be super present. And my girlfriend could tell you this, like, things in my house or things I have around me mean something to me.
Yeah.
I went through a phase of, like, if it's not invoking a feeling, what is it doing here? You know what I mean? If it's not reminding me of a memory or something, is it just taking up space on a shelf, or have I become just so void to it that I feel nothing? And so when I grab that mug and I grab my coffee, and it's funny, I had it today, that very mug. My girlfriend went to grab one and she's like, "This one?" I was like, "Nope." She's like, "You want the own your journey?" I was like, "That's what I want." Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's that hot mug of feeling like, man, this thing, like, kind of like you said about the park, you know what I mean? Like, this thing has been with me through some really dark times. And yet it's reminded me, and it's always provided warmth and comfort too. And here it is in my hands again, and I can feel the energy that's imprinted in this mug that, whoever gets it after I'm gone, or if it lasts that long, will they feel that energy? What will they think of it? I try to look at things in my life and share that meaning of, like, this is how I am. This is how I show up in the world, and kind of give the reader a peek into that and be like, I'm sure some people are like, does this guy really think this about a coffee mug? It's like, yeah, I do.
So did that phrase come easily to you? A mug that's seen some things?
Yeah, writing has been fairly easy for me. I will say that. In college, I used to write a lot and do free writing, and my professor always was like, "You're going to write an amazing book." I remember we had a choice one time to take a final exam. It was a medieval literature course. You could take a final exam or write your own novel. And I was
Oh
the
my
only
god.
one in the whole class who wrote a novel.
Wow.
And I remember professor going, "You're the only one that opted to write the book." And so words have always flowed. I would say after my brain injury, I struggled more with that, and like spelling and stuff like that isn't always caught as easily. But I'm learning to adapt and use different tools to proofread. But overall, they tend to flow pretty well. I may switch them out. It takes me hours, honestly, to write things. It'll flow, and then I'll cross it out and go, "That doesn't sound right," or "That's
Yeah.
too telling and not descriptive." And I think the one thing on Substack is I don't know if people really realize for most of our stories, it takes a while to what you see out there took me hours to write. Like to get through the essence, because I want to know, how did you feel after reading this? Then I know it's ready to be published, right? So those words, that one, I mean, that one flew pretty easy just because it seemed pretty matter of fact. Like, this mug has definitely seen some things.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And what is the creative studio, and how does that place nurture your creativity?
Creative studio is kind of this area that I have behind me. It's filled with anything that, like I have a bunch of Lego character minifigs that represent different sides of me. Okay, and there's like the writer and the painter and the wizard and the dragon and the photographer, and like the little writer guy has a little quill, you know what I mean? And I kind of flip that around and go, "Okay, who do I want to be today?
Yeah.
What energy do I want to play with?" And I try to surround my childhood innocence with my creativity. Even though we are adults, I think we get away with that. I have my watercolors and I have my art over there, and things around me light me up. I'm a curious guy. I like asking the weird questions. I like talking about the weird things. I like history. I like facts. And all of that makes it uniquely me. That's why I don't necessarily buy into this niche writing down,
Yeah.
right? As human beings, we're not a niche. We're multifaceted. One day I might want to write about my grocery store stories, and the other day I'm writing about, I don't, astrology,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Oh, okay. Um, so I'm going to read something else, but because I want people to hear
Yeah,
you,
absolutely.
and I didn't tell you in advance what I was going to read. So you can't micromanage the cosmos. Letting
Hmm.
go isn't a ritual; it's a nervous system vibe check, and it's deeply unsexy. It looks like folding laundry without refreshing your email, drinking tea without decoding your mug steam pattern, petting your dog without whispering, "Am I in the frequency yet?" So if you really want to call something in, stop refreshing the metaphysical tracking page. Go outside, touch some grass, and let the universe slide into your DMs for once. So, I think we have a lot in common.
Hmm.
And one of them is a relationship with nature.
Yeah.
Well, can you talk a little bit about that and how it fosters your creativity?
Yeah, nature is huge for me. It's where I go to breathe. It's where I go to balance. I think, it's on my hand as a compass is to remind me, and it's trees. When you feel lost, go to nature, and just be. And I think in a world where, I watch people walk around my neighborhood and you're on your phone, and it's like you're missing the magic that's literally right around you. And nature to me just reminds me of that. Sit out and have coffee in my patio and see the millions of different types of birds, from wild parakeets to crows to pigeons, and it's like I'm just amazed at nature in and of itself. And it helps ground me and also helps spark my creativity. How often do we actually go barefoot and stick our feet in the grass or on the sand, and just connect and just be and be like, wow, like when you really look at nature and you realize how perfectly it is orchestrated. How can it not be mind blowing? Like, I watched this bird land on this tiny little branch the other day, and I'm thinking, he's not sitting up there going, I don't know. That doesn't look like it'll hold me. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that. They're just boom.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I just trust and I go and I move on. And for me, it's what it is that your nervous system, especially for me in the last few months, my nervous system has become center stage of how do we comment in a world where everything wants our attention and can get us so dysregulated? Right. And nature does that for me. It's not requiring anything from me except to be present and to connect. That's all it
Yeah.
wants.
That's beautiful. And for me, it's nature and capturing it. And
Yes.
when you talk about, the nervous system and the way that it helps me to observe nature and to capture it is that I have this system, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm always, I always have my phone out or in my pocket ready to go. Last night we took the dog out and my daughter is talking to me and I'm like, she's like, Mom, I'm talking to you. And I'm like, I know, this is what I do. Um, but for me, it's a tool. I mean,
Yes.
actually, so nature is comforting. I mean, I don't want you to think that I'm using it inappropriately.
No,
Um,
it's
but
different for everybody, right?
yeah, yeah. So, and a lot of what I do, like I did it this week, is to compare what I capture with capturing it or living it or experiencing it in another time.
Yeah.
So, uh, I found a bunch of pictures from January 20th from different years, and, they weren't, like, all of pure nature, but they all had something to nature about them. So, the first one was the monument down the block from me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I read that this morning. That
Yeah,
monument's pretty
the
cool. Yeah.
firefighters. Yeah. So, that's kind of a something that, it's like a token or, it's just
Mhm.
something that has been there from the very beginning of my tenure in this neighborhood and seen me through so many different experiences. Um, there's trees. I didn't include this in the essay today, but there's trees that I have seen over the years,
Nice.
and I can compare, the tree from when I first saw it, or I could compare the tree in different, um, types of weather or from
Mhm.
different perspectives, like, am I facing the tree directly or am I up the hill, right?
Yeah.
So, I always have my camera out, and that thing you were saying about the bird while you were talking, like, is it afraid to land? Does it calculate,
Yeah.
consciously how it's gonna land? But um there's been a nest in a tree on the path down which I walk to the park with Shadow, and I hadn't seen birds, like, in the nest or around it, and I was really curious as to whether it was an active nest or not, and I was having that thought one day walking down the path, and all of a sudden, all of these sparrows are flying around that nest, and they're kinda, like, going, "Whoop, whoop," in and out of the nest, right? Just like so it's like, yeah, they're not worried about where they're going and what they're
Right.
doing, um, but again, it's like a marker of my
Mhm.
time here in this in this neighborhood. Um, I think if we could each share a little technique that we use
Hmm.
for getting to a story using something visual that might be helpful to the people here. And then we could see if there's any questions and then close it up because we are running late.
Yeah, I can do that.
So I'll let you go first. Listen
I
up.
have I have typically, like you said, that little bag back there. I have like little cards that I'll write stuff. What did I see? What did I feel? What did it feel? What did that invoke in me? And for me, it's something I know I shared with you before, but that really shifted the way I see the world was back in college. When I was going to school for video production and stuff, the professor gave us a picture and he said, go ahead. And I still do this, but I can do it visually now because I've done it so much. It's like, take a picture in your mind and then find me 10 pictures and 10 stories within that picture. Like just when you were talking about the January 20th, my mind went to think of how many different stories are in that theme alone,
Yeah.
right? Like you said, the different trees or the different monuments or your personal moments. Or, I mean, you could just go on and on from so many stories because I think when you can take this picture and you can zoom in to even more stories, you're helping people see and feel the richness and the details of life that maybe we don't always consider.
Yeah.
Or maybe we didn't see that story in that picture. We kind of tend to glance at something and see it and go, okay, yeah, I saw it. It's like, but did you see it? Did you notice in that tree all the particular buds that are on there? Maybe all the particular birds, maybe the insects. Did you notice the way the bark maybe, scrolls off one season and on another season it's completely bare? Right? Like, did you notice the details and the changing and then what story and what does that evoke? That's what I mean. There's just so much endless inspiration around us. For me, that's what I do. I typically, and I'll share it one more time. When I was at the beach, I saw this Amish family walking down the beach. And I know I talked to you about this. And the young boy, in his straw hat and his overalls happened to step into the water up to his knees. Wasn't concerned that his pants were getting wet, just was in pure bliss and joy. And at that
Yeah.
point, I snapped the photo and it's on my Instagram. And because I felt like there's no words right now to capture this essence. It was just this pure innocence, enjoying the ocean in the day and the sun with his family, and just pure bliss and happiness. And it's like just be here now,
Beautiful.
right?
Yeah. So, but did you write about that also eventually or no?
I wrote a short note about it, but I didn't make it an article.
Hmm.
It was more of my observation of that, and the snapshot to me felt complete.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you know what that means. It's like that's it. There's, if you want to go to that moment, like here's the picture.
Yeah.
Be
I
there
mean,
with him.
there are pictures in my memory vault that I haven't touched,
Hmm.
but actually it doesn't mean I won't ever touch them because
Right.
everything there is up for grabs. Um, but yeah, I like the idea of looking at a photo and finding the stories in it, as your college professor had encouraged you to do. Um, and um, Amy Lou, Amy, are you still on the call? Amy Lou has a weekly feature that she does with photos and shares prompts that
Mm.
encourage people, to write about the photo. And it's very, her photos are beautiful. They're her own photos. And the photos were the thing at first. Like she was taking them just as photos.
Right.
Um, uh, I wanted to share one technique as well.
Hmm.
And then if people have questions, um, so I have this thing that's like you could call it what I see is what you see is,
I love that.
or vice versa, right? So imagine a photo because I can't easily share here um, of a young me, at
Mm.
4 years old. um, at a beach club. So we're on a boardwalk. The cabanas are behind us. My mother is holding me from behind. She's crouched down
Mhm.
and she's got the 1960s sunglasses on. I've looked at that photo my whole life and thought, one day I'm going to write about this photo.
Mm.
Um, but really, what you see is a mother holding her child lovingly. This story should be about her. But what I see is the man behind the camera,
Mm.
and it's my father, and he's got, like, 2 cameras around his neck, the Brownie and the 35
Yeah.
millimeter, and, um, he took the pictures, and then he was, like, leaning against the railing, um, that is near the stairs that go down to the beach, right? You know, why is he leaning? What is he thinking about? Like, is he thinking, "Oh, Sheri says that they lost me. Hello? Can you guys?"
It's probably a glitch.
I mean, I see myself.
I see you too, so it still says we're live, so I don't know.
Anyway, um, my father died very young at 49,
Oh, wow.
of a massive coronary. So when I think about him, like, the past few years, okay, thank you, Karen. Um, I really am questioning his choices, um, because he was told he had to be really careful, with his heart because he had
Oh,
been
wow.
diagnosed with a silent heart attack, right?
Mhm.
So, the piece that I wrote, ended up being about him, even though the picture was myself and my mother. So, a couple of things I want to encourage people here is to use, visual imagery
Yeah.
to support your writing. You don't need to be,
Mhm.
an artist.
No. Or a
I just
photographer.
happen to love taking pictures, and also, I like to draw, and I'm drawing on my iPad, you know
Are you? I actually just got an iPad and am teaching myself
Yeah,
how to draw.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So
not a good drawer, but I'm learning.
mhm. Well, we'll have to share at one point. Um, but anyway, I want to encourage you that, um, drawing or taking pictures or working in clay or dancing or singing or listening to something, it's all a way of stimulating your creativity,
Yes.
and you can make it as direct as you want. So, you could write about what you see specifically, or you could use that image as a starting point for something that is on your mind and that it
Mhm.
reminds you of or stimulates. Okay. Um, I'm so glad we did this. I'm going to see if there are any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Nisa, yeah. Nisa takes beautiful pictures of the places that she visits and writes
Aw,
incredibly well about them. Follow or subscribe to Nisa Paula.
I'll have to take a look.
Yeah. Does anybody have questions or um, does anybody
Comments.
here incorporate the visual arts into your work, your writing?
Doesn't even have to be your visuals, it could be somebody else's that inspires you. You know, that's something I always look to, and stuff like Da Vinci always inspires me. Just
Yeah,
the way his brain thought about a million things. It's like, how did this man at that time just, you know,
yeah. Okay.
quiet group.
Couple of things coming up. Oh, sorry.
No, 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 go ahead.
Did I cut you off?
No, you didn't. You're good.
Okay. Um, a couple of things coming up. In early February, I'm opening a community called Writers Inspired by the Arts. And it's a writing group, but the special thing about it is there's going to be introductions to each session by people, such as Beckett, talking about how you could use another art form, how you could add another art form to your writing toolkit. Amy Lou is going to be the first person to join on February 8th. And there are a lot of other people who are on Substack who will be joining us to help, provide some inspiration and technique to that. I think that next week I might have a free workshop for adding photos to your writing toolkit. I'll post that um, shortly, and I'd love for you guys to come um, just to get kind of dip your toe in the water there. Beckett, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
I love talking with you. I love reading your stuff, and I'm glad that people who are here got a chance to hear us blather on.
that we finally got on. Thank you guys for coming and spending time with us. It really does. It means a lot to me to be able to connect with you and fellow writers and people on here. So thank you guys.
Same here. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.